It feels like it belongs to someone else.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. This is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 1 reaction / review. I know I didn't do a regular watch along as I normally do, at least I didn't upload, because I did do one with my friend Dave. It was great, and then somehow, my fault, it got corrupted or deleted, or it's just not available, unfortunately. But I can still do a review, and I'm going to put up a lot of clips of different things that I thought were really interesting and that I really liked about the show. And I got to say, I love the show. I love how realistic it is. I love how in-depth the characters are. There's so many things I want to get into, but let's get into the first episode review. Episode 2 will be coming out in a couple of days. I have not watched it, but will do a watch along, and I will review it. And then I think episode 3, 4, 5, and 6, I will be doing it with my friend Dave again, who I did WandaVision with. If you have not seen those reactions, you can check down the link below, or just subscribe to the channel. But anyway, let's get into it. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Oh, and one last thing. I am at work. That's why the background doesn't look as crappy, but it's been dead most of the morning. I figured it probably will be most of the day, so I can get this review done here at work. Crazy. Also, my mustache is epic. Please comment that below. Thanks. So when we start this show, this episode, we get right into it. We see that Sam Wilson is working for the government. We also see Batroc the Leaper, and me and my friend Dave, we're big UFC fans. Obviously, we know who George St. Pierre is, welterweight legend. So when we saw him back in this, we thought it was great. I mean, the way it just started, Sam Wilson, he's in it. I mean, he looks like a superhero. It looks like movie theater quality. I think I told my friend that this looked like Captain America 2.5. You know, it looked like a scene that should have been in one of those movies that was cut or something, just because the quality was so good. We also finally saw Sam Wilson use all of his repertoire, his wings as weapons, his wing as a shield, his communication device. He used Red Wing finally again. We hadn't seen him since, I think, Civil War.
Don't thank me.
I'm not thinking that thing.
His name is Red Wing.
I'm still not thinking it.
He's cute. Go ahead, pet him.
So, I mean, there were so many cool things. The way he just started, I was immediately in it. I was like, okay, boom, Sam's working for the government. He's still in it. He's still kicking ass. He's taking on a bigger role. And honestly, what we saw in these first 10 minutes is about as much as we saw in the whole MCU for Sam Wilson in terms of almost character development and all that. It's kind of sad to say, but they do have like 20 superheroes, so it's understandable, but he's finally now getting his due. I thought the intro to him was great. Now, I didn't get the name of it looked like Hispanic dude that was Sam Wilson's partner. He seemed, what's funny is I like that he mentioned these sort of conspiracy theories about Tony.
Crazy conspiracy theories. Some people, they think that he's in the secret base on the moon, looking down over us.
Because that's how people are nowadays, or have always been, really. Maybe more nowadays because of internet, social media, who knows. But that's how people would be making stuff up if there was a Tony Stark who ended up dying, saving the world. You know, they wouldn't believe it, and they would make up their own theories. What's funny is, sort of rewatching this, I noticed that he paid for Sam Wilson's lunch. I think the older Asian man paid for Bucky's lunch. We'll get into that in a minute, but I just think that's a funny thing that both of their lunches were being paid for. I don't know if they're trying to do something with that, but I don't know. I just thought it was a funny thing to note there. And it's funny, he said he was going to Washington, Sam Wilson did, and he played into the conspiracy theory. He's like, oh, moon stuff. But turns out we see that he is basically at Steve Rogers' funeral or sort of ceremony. I guess they revealed to the world that he died or something, even though we know he lived his life as an old man. You know, I gotta rewatch the whole MCU again, or at least Endgame, because I know he's an old man. I don't know if he's an old man in this timeline or in another timeline. I forget. Maybe they'll sort of explain it again. You know, but it sort of shows the headspace that Sam Wilson is now dealing with. And if you think that's bad, we'll get into Bucky's story and his headspace, his PTSD. I mean, there's so many great things about this episode. You know, I must say, I really did like the scene with Rhodey coming up to Sam Wilson. Don Cheadle made a cameo here, and I thought that was really cool that we see these two characters as the main characters. Look, everybody, it's so annoying to talk about Hollywood, woke stuff, diversity stuff. I'm all for that, In this scene, I think this sort of showing, it's almost, honestly, it's showing, because it's like the black friend, the side character of Iron Man and of Captain America, the two superheroes. But I'm glad that they showed these two people, sort of the other side of that, and showing them as main characters, as Sam Wilson as the protagonist. And it's sort of a way to, I think, show everybody watching that we sort of get that we've always had the same type of person, and now we have a different type of person. I know some people will pull their hair because they think, oh my God, that's so annoying, you're shoving our faces in it. It's annoying when they do it in like a token shitty way, which is mostly Hollywood. But I thought that scene was pretty cool, and I just thought it was badass because we had never seen them together. And then soon after that, they show, I think, my favorite scene, which is the Winter Soldier in his prime, in his Terminator, dead-eyed, kill anything, anything there is, anything that moves, state of mind, and basically that Manchurian Candidate hypnotized state of mind. And we see him kill this innocent person, which, just the way the scene set it up, where the guy's trying to leave, he's trying to pretend he didn't see anything, and he's just so afraid, and with no remorse, because he is like a machine, he's like a Terminator, with just no emotion, just psycho, just goes to him and kills the guy. And you already feel bad, but the way this is brought up again, I mean, it hits you right in the feels. I mean, you already feel bad for him because he's, and then when he ends up finally pulling the trigger, he wakes up in this like nightmare, and it just immediately makes you think of the scene in one of the MCU movies where Tony tells him, I think it was Civil War, did you even remember them? He's talking about his parents because he's the reason his parents died, or so he thinks.
Do you even remember them?
I remember all of them.
And he says, I remember all of them, basically like, this stuff's in my head, this stuff that I didn't want to do, this, it kind of reminds you of soldiers in war, except he didn't sign up, he got his brainwashed, and he's having nightmares about this. It was a really cool way of showing what he's been through in just a scene. And then obviously they cut next to him in therapy, and there was some good humor mixed in there. That was what was also awesome. And then they would go back to serious, but the whole thing seemed very grounded. That's one of the reasons why I really did appreciate this show. And one thing I do have to say while I was watching this show was a couple of things. How different that this show has been from a lot of the new stuff. It's very realistic. There's not that much comedy, and that's great, because although I love Marvel and I love the fantasticalness, WandaVision is at one side of the spectrum and the Winter Soldier is on the other side in terms of realistic, grounded, even almost like believability and stuff like that. Whereas WandaVision, obviously it's a supernatural, but you see them flying around, all this stuff, and although I do like that, this harkens back to more of the original MCU, like Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2 and Captain America 1, where stuff seemed, or I would say Captain America 2, this show, because Captain America 2, the Winter Soldier, obviously it had Bucky, so it's more like this, but it's more like this, that it's in the real world, modern day. There's not that many people flying around. Everything seems very realistic. And the comedy level is toned way down. It's not a joke every few seconds. And the few times there is a joke, like there's a scene where Bucky is like ordering some takeout, and then there's, Chinese restaurants, they have that cat that's always there. It's like going to a Chinese buffet and seeing that Buddha or something. There's one in every restaurant type of thing. And he stops it. He's like, stop moving. That was hilarious. There was nothing said. It was so like dry humor. it didn't ruin the show or make you lose respect for them in any way. It was just funny. It reminded me of that same type of humor when Bucky asked Sam Wilson to move his seat and he was like, no.
Can you move your seat up? No.
Like, that type of humor is like hilarious, and sometimes the MCU just hits the notes perfect, and sometimes they go a little overboard. Sometimes we all know those movies where it's like, all right, come on, is this a comedy? Like, come on, and that's why some people like the DC stuff more. I just watched the Justice League #Restore the Snyderverse. Anyway, we're talking about MCU stuff, but that's the reason. And this show is. I'm glad the fantastical exists, but I love the groundedness as well, because I can watch this with normies or with people that don't watch superhero stuff, and they'll watch it for a half an hour before they realize it's the superhero stuff. And like I said, they'll already be invested at that point, and they'll want to continue it. But I just had to say, I loved how realistic it is. Not too much comedy, and it's very grounded. One thing I will say is I do like how they reintroduced Sam Wilson's character. And I say reintroduced is because we really didn't know his backstory too much. We didn't know where he's from, what his family's from. It looks like he's from, like, South, some swampy part of the South, sort of a country boy. We see his sister, and I got to say, I loved the characters around him. His sister, it seemed like a real sister, believable, wasn't just there to say like a funny comic relief thing. No, she had her own personality, her own goals. She was trying to get this bank loan. This sort of, I love that scene because that's how it is sometimes when you're trying to do stuff like that. And I think they were trying to show that even at all levels, certain people sometimes have to deal with certain shit that others won't. And, sometimes the deck is stacked against you, even if you've done a lot of stuff. I thought that whole scene was great. That whole bank loan scene, I thought it was perfect. And the way it sort of ended with the dude with that shield, who I was like, all right, he must be a super soldier, or he escaped out of a lab where they had the Bucky type of people, because I do remember in Civil War, which I thought the movie was going to go in a whole different direction when he said this. He said, oh, these people, they're trained, they can speak 10 different languages, they'll take down a whole country overnight, nobody sees them coming. I was like, oh my God, is that what we're going to deal with in Captain America and the Winter Soldier? Because I think that's when he said it. And no, it went a different direction, but they sort of kept that in their back pocket. I wonder if this is what he's talking about, if that person with the mask who looks like Antifa with steroids, obviously, because they can't fight. Anyway, so that's what it reminded me of, like some anarchist type of person, but with like fucking like super serum power. I thought it ended badass, and it ended in a cool cliffhanger, not like, not crazy, like you have to watch it, tune in. I mean, you obviously do because you want to, but it ended in a good cliffhanger, which you kind of know where they're going to. They brought, I guess, U.S. agent. I don't know if they introduced him as that, but I do remember they introduced him, I think they said from the Department of Defense or something like that. So they're not being as like, this guy loves freedom. It's more like this guy's here to defend America, and destroy her enemies, which is kind of badass, but I can see there's going to be friction he's going to be definitely cause a lot of friction. So I will do episode 2 reaction. I don't know in how many days, but it will be in like 3 days. And then I will do episode 3 with my friend Dave, and hopefully all of them will come out on time thereon after, and I will be reacting with my friend Dave. Stay tuned and subscribe, hit like. Thanks.